I used to believe mi life was simple quiet predictable. I livet between TWO worlds, on necesside mi work long hours constant pressure, and on teoter mi moter. She was 82 years old, fragile slow but still of dignity. I still remember she would smile even when walking urter, even when her hands trembled she never complained, and me I made a promise to myself, no matter what. Pened I would take care of her. I built mi routine around that promise, wake up early, check on her, prepare medicine, then rush to work, come back tired but still sit beside her, listen to her stories, the same honest she told 100 times. I never got tired of them, because deep down I knew time wasn't on our side, and then Tere was mi wife, at least back then I believed she under. To the everything, I believed she respected my responsibility, my love for my motor. We didn't talk about it much, but I thought she accepted it. I thought we were stable, but now when I look back I realize something. There were signs, smarones, quietones. The wire voice would change when my motor needed something. The wire she would sig just slightly thinking I wouldn't notice. This lens during dinner e abierta unusual. I saw it, but I ignored it. I stayed silent because I didn't want conflict. I told myself it's nothing, just stress it we pass. I wanted peace even if it meant pretending everything was fine. And for a while it worked. Days passed, nothing exploded, nothing broke. So I convinced myself everything was under control. I really believed that, I believed. But my home was still safe, until that night, that evening something changed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't obvious, but I felt it, inner voice, cold, distant, unfamiliar, and in that moment, without realizing it, something inside me started to break. I still remember that moment like it slowed everything down. It started with something small. So small most people wouldn't even think twice about. It mi moter needed help, nothing dramatic, just something simple but important for her. Her hands were shaking more than usual that day. Her voice softer weaker. She tried to eat like she always did. Son when you have time, she sighed quietly. That sentence alone was enough for me. I knew she needed help right then, not later, not tomorrow. So I walked into the living room. My wife was sitting there calm, scrolling on her phone like nothing else existed. I approached gently. I didn't want tension. I didn't want another silent argument. I just said softly, "Hey, can you help me mom for a minute? I need to finish something quickly." I expected a simple okay, or even a small siggy but still help, something human, something normal, but instead she looked up at me, not angry. Not surprised, just empty, cold, and then she said it. Unlate yourself. I didn't react at least not outside, but inside something cracked. Those weren't just words, they carried weight, distance, rejection. I stared at her for a second, maybe on her tiny shoulder ave, waiting, hoping she'd say something else, but she didn't. She just looked back at her phone like the conversation was over, like my motor didn't matter. Like it didn't matter. I still remember how my chest felt in that moment, ticked, heavy, confused, because it wasn't the woman I thought I knew, or maybe she had always been this way and I just refused to say it. I stayed silent, I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice, I just turned around and walked away, but every step felt abiertante last, because something inside me was changing, but what hurt me most wasn't what she said, it was what she did next. I thought it would end with those words, "Unlate yourself," but it didn't. It went further in a way I wasn't ready for. I walked back toward my mother's room, slow steps, heavy thoughts, and then I heard it. My wife's voice again louder this time, not directed at me but not quieter. She always needs something, it's exhausting. I froze, reached there into a way, I didn't react but inside something burned. It wasn't just refusal anymore, it was dismissal. Like mi motor the woman who gave me everything was just a burden in her eyes. I stayed silent, because I knew if I spoke in that moment it wouldn't end well. So I kept walking, I entered mi motor's room. She was sitting there exactly as I left her, still quiet, pretending everything was fine. I still remember her eyes. She didn't ask what happened, she didn't complain. She just gave me a small smile and said, "It's okay son, take your time." That smile it broke me more than anything else, because I knew she had heard, maybe not a very word but enough to understand, and yet she chose silence, just elle. I came I helped her carefully gently, turning to the what I was feeling, but inside I felt something I had never felt before in my own home, humiliation, not because of shouting, not because of affect, but because I couldn't defend her, because I stood there and let it happen. That silence between us me and my motor, it was louder than any argument. It carried pain, disappointment, and some Ting else realization, and in that moment something inside me changed, not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. I stopped saying things the same way, I stopped believing everything was fine. That was the moment I decided I would stop reacting and start watching. I didn't target that night, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't defend myself, I didn't even look at her again, I chose silence, not Becca. Use I was weak but because something inside me had shifted. I still remember that feeling, cold, focused, quiet, like I had stepped back and started saying everything clearly for the first time. I stayed silent, but I started watching the way she spoke, the way she moved around the house, the way her tone changed depending on what she was talking to. At first it felt small, insignificant, but I paid attention, because now a very little thing mattered. She thought it was over, she thought she had won that moment, that I had accepted it, that I would just move on. I could say it in her behavior more confident, more distant, less careful, and that's when I realized something. People reveal the truth when they think no one is looking. I didn't react, even when I noticed things that didn't. They felt rigged even when her words felt sharper than before. I held everything in, because I wasn't trying to win an argument anymore, I was trying to understand, to set a full picture, and slowly patterns began to form, small habits, strange timing, moments that didn't connect at first, but then they started aligning, like pieces of something bigger, something hidden. I still remember the X. Act moment it changed. It was nothing dramatic, no loud noise, no confrontation, just a small detail something most people would ignore, but I saw it, and in that second everything inside me went still, because I can notice wasn't just about her attitude anymore, it was something deeper, something she never expected me to notice, and then I noticed something she thought I'd never say. I wish I could say it was in me head. At first that's what I told myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was just hurt and saying things that weren't reality. But then I started noticing more. Small things, the kind of things you ignore until you don't. Late at night her phone would light up. She said to leave it anywhere without care. But now she kept it close. Always face though. And always within reach. I didn't react but inside I was paying attention. I still remember on a night the room was quiet, dark. I thought she was asleep. Then suddenly a soft vibration. Her phone, she grabbed it instantly, too quickly. Like she was waiting for it, I turned slightly pretending not to notice. She stood up and walked out of the room. No explanation, no words, just silence. Ante. At silence said everything, I stayed still, listening, to find sound of her voice in another room, low careful, not the way she spoke to me anymore. The next morning I asked casually, were you on a last night? She didn't even hesitate. No, you must be imagined it, just like that, as simply, clear and direct, like she had practiced it, and that's when something shifted again, not. Emotionally time, logically, because now it wasn't just behavior, it was deception. I didn't react, I just nodded like I believed, but instead I started connecting everything, the distance, the tone, the late case, the guarded phone, piece by piece it started forming something real, something I couldn't ignore anymore. I watched more carefully after that, ante more I watched them. Or I saw patterns, timing, messages that disappeared too quickly, conversations that ended when I entered the room. This wasn't random, this was controlled, intentional, and then it hit me. This had nothing to do with my motor. That was just the surface, an excuse. The real story was something else, something much bigger, something she was hiding from me deliberately. And what I uncovered next. They changed everything I thought I knew about her. At first it felt like pieces, disconnected, random, things that didn't fully make sense. But the more I watched, the more they started to align. I still remember the moment it began to feel real, not suspicion anymore but clarity. It started with something simple, a notification on the tablet where Botu said, she had forgotten to log out, just on S. A mistake and I saw it, a transaction, un familiar, not something we had discussed. I didn't react, I just looked carefully, scrolled a little, and then I saw more transfers, amounts that didn't match our usual expenses. That stat lined up with the next she stayed distant quiet, my chest tightened, but I stayed calm, because now I wasn't guessing anymore, I was saying it, I still remember. Whispering to myself, this doesn't make sense, but deep down it did, more than I wanted to admit. Over the next few days I paid even closer attention. Her case, her messages, her movements, and then the connections appeared, names I didn't recognize, numbers saved under fake labels, conversations that were quickly deleted. This wasn't accidental, this was organized, careful, planned, CW. Wasn't just being cold, she wasn't just distant, she had been building something behind me back, something I was never supposed to say, and the hardest part was realizing this didn't start recently, this had been going on for a while, maybe longer than I could imagine. I didn't react, I didn't confront her, but instead everything had changed. te pain I felt before it turned into something else. Awareness, focus, control, I wasn't just anymore, I was alert. Every word she said, every move she made, I saw it differently now, like I was finally awake. And in that silence I understood anything clearly. If I wanted the truth I needed proof, not emotions, not assumptions, proof. Something she couldn't deny, something that would expose everything. So I did something I never thought. Although that night I didn't sleep much, I later staring at the ceiling replaying everything in my head. Every word, every lie, every moment I chose to ignore, but this time something was different. I wasn't overwhelmed, I was focused. I still remember that feeling calm on the outside but sharp inside. Like my mind had finally stopped fighting the truth and started accepting it. Hasta. Yet silent, she was right next to me sleeping pace Fuji. At last pretending to, I didn't react but inside I was planning. Step by step, care Fuji, no emotions, no confrontation, just clarity. I can't anything for sure, I couldn't rush this. If I made a mistake she would hide everything. And I would be left with nothing but questions again. So I slowed down, I talked about the next day. Every move I would make, every word I would say or not say, I started arranging things quietly, simple actions, small decisions, but each one had a purpose. For the first time in a long time I felt something I hadn't felt before. Control not over her, but over myself, over my reactions, over my emotions. And that gave me power, real power. She still thought I was broken, I could say it in te. Why she looked at me, distant, unbothered, like I had already accepted everything, like I would never question her, and that worked in my favor. Because the less she suspected the more she revealed. I didn't say anything that night, I didn't change my routine, I didn't give her a reason to doubt me, but inside everything was already moving. The next day wasn't going to be normal, not for me. And definitely not for her. She had no idea the next 24 hours would change her life forever. The next morning everything looked normal. That's the strange part. The world doesn't change when your life is about to. It just continues. I woke up early, same routine, same silence. She was still asleep, peaceful, calm, like nothing in our room was about to break apart. I still remember standing there. For a moment just watching, and thinking you have no idea what's coming. But I didn't say it, I stayed silent, I got ready like usual, no unusual behavior, no sudden change. Because I can't the moment I acted differently she would feel it, and I couldn't allow that. First thing I did was me motor. I went to her room, she was already awake, as always, waiting quietly. She smiled at me teache. The moment she saw me, and sighed softly, everything okay son, I nodded, yes me everything is fine. I didn't tell her anything, she didn't need to carry what was coming, not yet. I helped her with everything she needed, slowly care Fuji, with respect, with patience. Like I always did, but inside my mind was somewhere else, focused, sharp, controlled. After that I left the house, same team. In as always, but this time I wasn't going to work like normal. Every step I took outside felt different, not emotional, strategic. Because everything I had been observing, everything I had been projecting was now in motion. I didn't rush, I didn't panic. I followed the plan I had built the night before. Quiet actions, small moves, but each one bringing me closer to what was hidden. Closer to what she thought would never surface. I still remember that feeling, not anger anymore, not confusion, just clarity. She thought I was the same man was stayed silent, who ignored things, who accepted excuses, but she didn't know I had already changed completely. Every or that passed I felt it building, the truth, like it was waiting just behind the surface, and it was. Finally close enough to touch it. I stayed patient, I stayed calm, because I knew the moment of truth wasn't far anymore, and then it happened a moment, small at first, but enough to change everything, because what came next was something she never saw coming. I didn't rush into it, I didn't lose control, that was the most important part, because by the time I reached that moment I wasn't the same person anymore. I had seen too much, I had learned too much, and now I was ready. I still remember that day clearly, I felt normal, too normal, she was in the same space acting like everything was fine, scrolling her phone calm, relaxed, like nothing was wrong in our world. I walked in slowly, no anger on my face, no emotion in my voice, just silence, e había controlled silence. Looked up at me and said casually, are you okay? I didn't answer immediately, I just looked at her, not the way you said to, and then I spoke, calmly, clearly. I know about the transfers. Silence, just like that the room changed. I still remember her expression, first confusion, then realization, then fear. She tried to laugh it off, a small nervous sound. What are you talking about, but? Voice betrayeder, it wasn't steady anymore, istalled silent for a second, let it settle, then side again ive sene veriting. That's when it appened confidence disappeared, just like that, no shouting, no drama, just collapse. For the first time she wasn't in control anymore, she stood up slowly, like she was turning to regain power but couldn't. I can explain, she sighed. Her voice wasn't strong anymore. He didn't interrupt her, he didn't argue, he just watched, because now he understood something important. Truth doesn't need noise, it doesn't need anger, it reveals itself in silence. And she was standing right in it. I still remember thinking this is what it feels like when the mask breaks. Her eyes were no longer confident, they were searching for escape. For control, for anything, but there was nothing left to hold on to, and for the first time she was exposed. Not me, not anymore. Her voice dropped, her hands trembled slightly, the power she thought she had was gone, and he just stood there, calm, steady, watching everything fall into place, because this was not the end, not even close, but he wasn't done yet, not even close. He didn't write. My voice he didn't need to, because at that point the truth was already standing in front of her. I still remember that moment. The silence in the room felt different now, heavier, like even they understood what was happening. She kept turning to speak, kick words, broken sentences. I can explain it's not what you think, but I stopped there, not aggressively, just firmly. Ive already said. And now Anthony told her everything, on the transfers, the messages, the hidden patterns, the lies she thought were invisible. He spoke slowly, clearly, no anger in my voice, just truth, and that made it worse for her. Her face changed with every sentence, first denial, then fear, then something close to panic. She tried to step closer, to soften it, to control the moment again. They didn't work anymore, because the moment wasn't hers now, it was mine. I still remember thinking this is what it feels like when someone realizes they've lost control. She whispered, you were spying on me? And he answered calmly, no. It was just finally saying you clearly, that it era there than anything else, because there was no emotion left to manipulate, no confusion left to say. Reate everything was already exposed, and for the first time she had nothing to hide behind. I stayed still, watching her to rebuild something that was already broken, but it was too late. Every excuse she tried to collapse before it even reached me, because the truth was already complete. He wasn't the same man anymore. Teone would doubted himself, Teone was stayed quiet, Teone would ignore. The signs, that version of me was gone. Now he saw everything, clearly, without emotion clothing it, and she felt that shift she can't with too. Her voice lowered, her confidence disappeared completely, and for the first time she wasn't leading anything, not the conversation, not the situation, not me. I still remember the silence after that, no more arguments, no more explanations, just truth sitting. Between us be irreversible, and that's when he came out the balance had changed forever. He was no longer the man she underestimated, he was the only holding the truth, and she came out too, because in that moment everything shifted, and then he made a decision on she never expected. He didn't feel anger anymore, not like before. It was something different now, something calmer. I still remember that. At moment clearly, standing there after everything had been revealed, the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore, it was final, and in that final silence I made my choice. I chose dignity, not revenge, not shouting, not more arguments, just dignity, mine and my mother's. I looked at her and said it clearly, I won't continue this like it's normal, my mother deserves respect, and I deserve. Be honesty, my voice was steady, no shaking, no emotion breaking through, just truth, simple and final. She tried to respond, soft words at first, then faster, then almost desperate. I made mistakes, I can fix this, but I didn't interrupt her, I let her speak, because I wanted her to hear it too, everything she had become, everything she had lost, then I set the boundaries, clear. Movable, no more manipulation, no more silence games, no more pretending things were normal, just consequences, and reality. I still remember her face in that moment, not anger, not confidence, just realization, slow painful realization, like she was finally saying the weight of everything she had done, and for the first time she couldn't deny it, I stayed calm, even when she stopped speaking. Even when the room went completely quiet again, because he wasn't fighting anymore, he was finishing it respectfully, firmly, completely, and strangely he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, not happiness, not victory, peace, because the chaos was no longer inside me, it was outside, behind me. I still remember thinking this is what clarity feels like. No confusion, no doubt. No emotional weight pushing me back, just understanding, she realized it to not immediately, but slowly, inte why she stopped defending herself, inte why her voice lowered, inte why her confidence never came back, she understood what she had lost but bitten it was already over, some things can't be undone, no matter how many words are spoken, no matter how many apologies are given, some moments change everything permanently, and this was one of them. I turned away that day not in anger but in acceptance, because I knew the truth now, and I knew my limits, and I knew my worth, but the real ending wasn't what anyone would expect. Is to think about everything that happened even now, not with anger anymore, not with pain like before, but with clarity, because when everything is. Led when the noise disappeared, I started saying things differently. Mi motor she became the clearest part of my life. She never shouted, never demanded, never fought for attention. She just endured, quietly, with dignity. I still remember her sitting there, smiling softly even when life was heavy. And that strength it stayed with me, more than anything else. I said to think I was strong. Because I could handle work. Because I could stay patient, because I avoided conflict, but I was double wrong. Real strength is what she had, silence without bitterness, pain without revenge, love without conditions. After everything ended, I didn't rebuild my life with anger, I didn't carry a thread forward, I rebuilt it with clarity, slowly, carefugi, piece by piece, not everything returned the same. Me things were gone forever, but so meeting new began. I stayed silent many times after that, but it wasn't the same silence anymore. Before silence was fair, no silence was understanding. There is a difference, a powerful one. I still remember thinking on a night, maybe this didn't break me, maybe it showed me who I am. Because in the middle of betrayal, confusion and truth is also meeting. Never saw before, myself, not the version who tolerated everything, not the version who ignored pain, but the version who finages to honesty and saw clearly, what values, what protects, what we never allow again. So me times I wonder was this a loss, or was it revelation? Because in losing what I thought was stability I gained something else, awareness, self-respect, truth, and me. Motor she reminded the center of everything. Her quiet strength became my foundation. The reason I didn't fall apart. The reason I didn't lose myself completely. I rebuilt everything around that understanding, not revenge, not bitterness, just clarity and boundaries, strong honest, final honest. I still don't know how to explain that transformation Fuji, but I can know one thing, I am not the same man. I was before, and I never will be again. So me times betrayal doesn't destroy you, it reveals you, and that day I finally saw who I truly was, and that was the day everything changed forever.